Hi, it's Raul. I have a Summit hydraulic third function kit that I'll be installing on my new Holland Workmaster 25S today. I'm going to try to capture it on video. Let's see how it goes. Well, these are all the items in the kit from Summit Hydraulics. I have some instructions that I'll be looking at on the side here. We've got 4 hydraulic hoses. I'll put those away while we work on the other parts. First thing the instructions have you do is to attach this valve to this manifold. Pressure tank AB. Picture shows to line it up like that. Remove these inserts. Remove these inserts. Let's see what happens. There we go. Just some plugs. There we go. It's got some O-rings in there. Now the instructions talk about this one little hole right here. Ensure P on valve is aligned with pinhole on manifold. P on valve and the pinhole see what size hex this is. And the torque specs on these bolts, according to the instruction, are 2 foot-pounds, which is 24 inch-pounds. Snug these up slowly. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're set to 24 inch-pounds. Not much. Yeah, that's not much. Okay, that's one. We have a number of fittings that are pipe thread, and that's the only fittings that I need to put thread tape on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Initial assembly is install adapter number 8 SAE ORB male by 3/8 NPT male into both A and B ports on valve assembly. This is the has an O-ring right here. That is the SAE ORB and a 3/8 NPT. And we want that to go on A and B. And then the P and T ports are number 8 SAE ORB male to 3/8 JIC male. And the JIC is the one with this 37-degree chamfer on this small fitting. Okay, I'm going to attach this to the bracket. And it looks like this. With A and B up. Okay, the next step is mounting this bracket. And it's going to go right here. Now, since my tractor has a backhoe attachment, this structural member leads back to the backhoe. If you don't have a backhoe on the machine, this plate out front wouldn't be here and these holes would be unused. So I'm going to pull these bolts out. Oh. Pretty tight. All right, now this is actually separating right here a little bit. as I do this. I hope nothing moves. Nope, I wouldn't say it's not moving. Okay, that looks pretty good. These sections of pipe came with the kit. They were bare steel, so I primed them and painted them black. Now the other thing I did with them is that the standard kit is designed to mount against this inner plate. But this has to go on the outside of this extra backhoe support, backhoe frame support. So I cut this is about a 1/2 inch thickness. So I cut about a 1/2 inch off of these pipes, these pipe sections, primed and painted them. So they will line up right here. Because this is loose and a loose fit, the diameter of the bolt and the diameter of the pipe are so far different from one another. I decided I wanted to make sure that this was centered in that pipe. So I'm just adding a little piece of foam into the pipe so that the bolt is kind of centered. Okay, this is going to mount up just like this. There's a flat washer, lock washer on the outside, flat washer, lock washer, nut on the inside. Sure this is straight up and down. That looks pretty good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and torque these connectors now that everything's mounted. I'll should be able to get this in here. All right, let's see what that. That just seems overly tight if I'm going for .39 foot-pounds. Right there. Seems overly tight, but let's see. Yeah, that seems like it's getting tight before the torque is reached. So we'll see. It's definitely tight, but it's not reaching torque. So I'm not going to overdo it. Okay, so now we're going to put fittings here, and then we're going to have hoses that go to here. Just for good measure on these pipe thread fittings. I'm going to put a little bit of liquid sealant on them. Now we have a pair of male connectors that go to these fittings. Don't really want to put too much pressure on these. Okay. So these female couplers that are going to go on the A and B ports of the valve need to have 3/8 NPT to JIC adapters. That's these two. Just going to put a little bit of this on it. Not a lot. The other part of this is we have a male and female coupler that goes on the other end of these hoses. I have this nylon sleeve that I'm going to add. Did not come with the kit. I'm going to add to group these two hydraulic hoses together. It looks like this is a very high quality hose that has kind of a rubber impregnated wrap around on it already, so it probably doesn't need this, but I want to add it, and that will just kind of tie them together, let's say. So I took some time and worked on the routing of that pair of hydraulic hoses. And this is what I came up with. Tied it in right there to those two hoses. Comes up here. I may have to tie this down, we'll see. Tied it in to these loader hoses, and then there's a big loop up here and comes into the top of that new valve. I'm going to start up the tractor and we'll see if anything's becoming pinched or moving or stressed. As I move the loader up and down. I'll probably have to do something and tie that in right there. Can't say that I like that there's this big loop right there, but there's no other place to put all this hose. And you kind of need this loop to keep stress off of everything, because it kind of twists as you move the loader up and down. So we'll call that good. And we'll start working on the hydraulic hoses that have to go into the bottom of that manifold, into that valve, and leads to the back, the hydraulic pump on the tractor. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've learned about the hydraulics system relative to the backhoe and the rest of the tractor. The hydraulic pump is right here. This is the pressure line that comes out of that pump. For the backhoe, it goes into a line that goes to the backhoe, and then it comes out of that backhoe valve as pressure beyond. And then pressure beyond goes into what is a pressure manifold that sends pressure to the front of the tractor to the loader valve. And then this line coming from the backhoe just is the return to tank circuit. If I disconnect my backhoe, that puts the system into the same configuration as a tractor without a backhoe. And I'll go ahead and disconnect it now. It's off. Oops. That one comes off. That one comes off. And what this does is this, to this point, so now I have the backhoe disconnected. So the pressure comes out of the hydraulic pump that's down here, and then it routes up through this connection to the pressure beyond connection that goes into the manifold that's back there. On a tractor without the backhoe kit, this is a hard steel line that runs from that point, which is the hydraulic pump. It runs across here and goes directly into the input of the pressure manifold. And these two steel lines aren't on a tractor without the backhoe kit, the factory backhoe kit. So essentially where the this third function kit is going to get its pressure from is it's going to replace this connector. So this line is going to come off, and then the return from that third function valve is going to go to the other end of this pipe into the pressure manifold that feeds pressure to the loader valve. The next step to this installation is running the two hydraulic lines that provide pressure and take pressure out of the third function valve to the rear of the tractor. I'm going to run these lines along the frame and up above some steel lines, hard lines that factory lines that come from the back of the tractor up to the loader valve here, and that will protect them and keep them out of interacting with any other linkages or components. So that's going to go in here. Alright. Okay. Got that run. So So I'll tie up things underneath best I can. Then we'll move on to the connections in the rear. I've run these two lines, tied them up on the way up to the front of the tractor. One of the lines has to make a connection right here, and that's going to be pressure into this manifold block. This manifold block, then these two steel lines go up to the loader valve. Then this lower steel line down here is the tank line from the loader valve. So this line needs to go here, and then this other line is going to come up to the back here and replace a coupler. Okay, so that's the fitting that came out. And this is supposed to be the fitting that goes in. It has a washer and a steel washer and a rubber component to it. On the right is the hydraulic tubing that was removed during this installation. That tube was essentially replaced with the two hydraulic lines that run from the rear of the tractor over to the P and T port of the third function valve. On the left is a bracket that I fabricated so that the new hydraulic hose is mounted in the same position, and the coupler that's attached to it is where it needs to be. In the case of installing this third function on a tractor that doesn't have a backhoe, a factory backhoe, that tube isn't exactly the same. That tube actually is shaped differently, and instead of the coupler, that end mounts directly to the output of the hydraulic pump. But essentially, it's replaced by the two hydraulic hoses that lead to the third function valve. This is the new hose that was installed, and that bracket will allow this to be mounted essentially like this. I've got the bracket installed. And this hose right here is one of the new hoses that goes to the third function valve. And what makes this bracket critical is that when you disconnect the backhoe to use the 3-point function, the 3-point hitch, this lift arm goes up and down in this space. And without this bracket, these portions of the hydraulic system are just hanging here. It could easily get caught up and rub against this arm. It essentially puts it back into a configuration prior to the third function installation. I'll disconnect the backhoe hydraulics and talk about that a little bit. So I've disconnected the backhoe hydraulics, which are these 3 lines here. And this would allow me to pull the backhoe completely off the back of the tractor. Then this hose comes from the hydraulic pump, comes up and feeds into this coupler that I added this adapter to. And then this lift arm needs to be able to pass and clear all of this. So that's what that bracket does. Here are the 2 hydraulic hoses that run from the third function valve to the rear of the tractor. One is connected to the hydraulic manifold, then the other goes to the back of the tractor and is connected to this Power Beyond port where I installed that bracket. Well, I've got the wheel back on. And it looks like the hydraulic lines are about 1.5 inches away from it. I finished up the hydraulic portion of this third function installation, and I'll close this video as part 1. I'll have a part 2 that includes the rest of the installation, which is the electrical hookup and the testing. See you then.